welcome back to Narrative Wargamer here on YouTube. I am Tony, and this is just a little forward before tonight's episode. Tonight, this is the latest in our Classics episode, where we look back at some of our favourite episodes from the podcast before its time on YouTube. For those of you who have recently discovered us on YouTube, this is a chance for you to enjoy some of our best and favourite episodes from the back catalogue of the show. Tonight is episode 29. It is the first of the Fun Facts lore quizzes that we do on the show, a popular format and one of our personal favourites that we enjoy producing. It's based on the lore and the events from the first Warzone Charadon book a couple of years ago. So as the first lore quiz, this is one of the episodes that we had a lot of fun putting together and became an ongoing staple for the channel. So we hope you enjoy listening to it tonight.
And we're back, guys, and I am really excited to be back for this one because this is the first ever 40k Fun Facts quiz, and tonight is going to be Mr. Dan and Mr. Dave going head to head to try and work out who can guess the 40k lore of Warzone Charadon the best.
Yes.
So I mentioned at the top of the show that basically this is going to be it's going to be a little quiz where I'm going to run down a bunch of questions that are taken from the events of Warzone Charadon Act 1, The Book of Rust. And each question is going to be multi-choice, and only one of them is going to be true. So both Dan and Dave can pick which one they think is going to be true before I reveal it, and we're going to keep a tally and see who knows their 40k lore better, or I guess who knows the 40k universe better.
And we have the option that we could both do, haven't we?
Oh yes, definitely. So all the questions have 3 answers, so if you both pick a different one each, and in fact you're both wrong, because the third option is the correct one, then there'll be no points scored for that question.
Alright.
So, to clarify for our listeners, this is not the case of like remembering information that they've read. I've read through all the lore in the Book of Rust, and neither Dan or Dave has yet had a chance to delve deep into reading what is a good 40 pages of narrative lore for this narrative campaign. So it's not that they know the stuff and I'm asking them to remember it, it's that they've presumably never heard of or are aware of these facts and they're just hearing it for the first time.
Right.
Yep.
So
It's all new and exciting.
it is all new and exciting, and I think it's going to be fun. And I've had a lot of fun writing these questions because obviously, for every real fact, I've had to fabricate 2 fake ones that have to be somewhat equally convincing. Yeah. So it's
So
gonna
what
be
you're
interesting.
saying is, if there's any Games Workshop writers listening in, there is
This should be considered as a job interview. For Tony.
there's quite a lot of free ideas here.
Mm-hmm. Feel free to make any of these canon, and then we can come back and retroactively adjust scores.
Perfect.
So yeah, I've broken it down to 3 sections, and the first section is kind of a getting to know you section. And it's all about the Charadon sector itself, sort of pre the invasion. So it's more of a little bit of a backstory to Charadon. So we'll jump straight in with our first question, and this should hopefully give you an idea and set the tone then of how they're going to be moving forwards. So question 1. As the prime Forge World in the Charadon sector, Forge World Metallica endlessly produces countless weapons and machinery for use across the Imperium. Which of the following is a deliberate, trademark feature of all Metallican pattern weapons and machinery? So something that is deliberately done to these products that they send out, and not a funny side effect of production. This is a deliberate modification the tech priests make.
Okay.
Is it A, that they are louder than normal? B, that they are all low-level radioactive, or C, they can all be remotely disabled by Metallican tech priests.
Well, I think the radiation one is a red herring then. And the reason I say that is because that's a feature of one of the Necromunda gangs, that all of their tech is radioactive, right? The Vansars?
Funnily enough, that is true. I'm not awarding a bonus point for it, though, because this is not a Necromunda quiz. But that is, in fact, a true Necromunda fact.
Yes.
So I think that's wrong. I think the loudness thing, that's your orc coming out. So I suspect the weapons can be disabled so that they can't be used against Metallican forces.
And that does sound like a smart thing to do for a Forge World. That, you know, Forge Worlds like to have their own autonomy a certain amount, and there certainly have been times when they have clashed with other Imperial forces, right?
Very much so. In fact, it almost happens at one point in Book of Rust in the lore.
Cool, we'll get to that then.
Remember that for future questions.
Or is that a red herring?
Well, maybe. Tony playing the 4D chess there to throw us off.
I don't think there's a reason you can't agree with me.
Yeah. Feel free to turn this into a collaborative detective piece, or feel free to just try and compete for points.
If we agree all the way down, it's a draw, isn't it? So, fine. I agree with you on this one.
So we're going for C, can be remotely disabled by Metallican tech priests?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased to inform you that you are both wrong.
Okay, then.
Yay!
It is, in fact, A, they are louder than normal.
Okay.
Louder.
Fair enough.
All Metallican pattern weapons and machinery are designed to be louder when in use than normal in order to better proclaim the glory of the Omnissiah to those around and to the enemies of the Imperium as the weapons go about their work.
I mean, I guess that does make sense. In the sort of classic Games Workshop silly name thing of if it's Forge World Metallica, they're going to make everything loud.
Pretty much. So yes, I hope that sets the tone for the rest of the quiz.
Quite.
Yeah.
A louder than necessary tone.
Yeah.
So, the Charadon sector as a whole. So we're on to question 2 now. The Charadon sector as a whole consists of 3 subsectors, which are, funnily enough, the various ones we've talked about in the flashpoints. And the first line of defense in these sectors are a trio of gateway worlds. These are star systems that are found on the outermost edge of the 3 Charadon subsectors and sit sentinel over the primary warp routes into each of these regions of space. Any invading foe would need to traverse these systems to gain access to the rest of the sector. As gateway worlds, these planets have a unique defense system for repelling any invaders. But what is it? Is it A, gravitational claws, B, planetary lasers, or C, radiation minefields?
Well, you said unique, so it can't be planetary lasers because, like, everyone and their mum in 40k has them.
That's not unique. Yeah.
Like farmers and farmers' mums.
The gravitational claws thing, isn't that from? Isn't that what, again with the orcs? Isn't that what they had in the 33rd millennium?
You're thinking of lifted
gravitational attack moons. No, I'm thinking of the gravitational attack moons.
Oh, the attack moons, yes, the one that nearly made it to Terra.
From the Primorcs. Yeah.
I mean, it does sound pretty orky. I'm going to go with the radiation. That's it's a fairly common theme with the AdMech. And
it is, but I'm going to go with the gravitational attack claws.
All right then, we're splitting.
Ooh, we're splitting the needle. Would you like to know who is getting their first point?
Is the answer none of us?
The answer is neither of you, because it is in fact B, planetary lasers.
What?
Planetary? They're not you. What's special about them that makes them unique?
Right, so each of these gateway worlds has a planetary Ordinatus class superweapons capable of firing on enemy vessels at the very edge of their respective star systems. So we're talking about a weapon on Earth that could hit something by Pluto.
Right. So what we're talking about when we thought planetary lasers meant lasers that shoot from the planet, and what they actually meant was laser that is the planet, basically.
Pretty much.
It's a Death Star situation, isn't it?
There's no space station. Yeah. It's just
yeah, cool. Moon. So it's a good start.
I mean,
we did split on one.
Just think about that, though. Like these are, they are classed as Ordinatus class super weapons. So these are the things that the Mechanicus produce that are all considered like unique constructs designed to do one thing. They're not replicated anywhere else in the Imperium. And
if they're unique constructs, how can there be one on each gateway world?
Because they probably all have a slightly different volume of firing. They'll be,
of course, because they're louder than usual, so that they can play the ones.
Exactly, because these planetary lasers are louder than standard planetary lasers.
All right then.
But yeah, like the Ordinatus class super weapons capable of firing on ships at the edge of the star system, not even just like in orbit or anything like that. I mean, just think about the level of mathematics involved in targeting that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't want to come close because your Emperor, well, not your Emperor class ships, but your Despoiler class ships or similar are just going to get struck out of the out of the stars.
Yep.
However, question 3 is a little more native in nature. So, the death world of Sabira is classified as such due to several natural phenomena. Which of the following is one of them? Is it A, deadly green fog, B, tank-eating ferrivore plants, or C, all natural water on the planet is highly corrosive?
Tank-eating plants, did you say?
He did say tank-eating plants.
Ferrivores plants, so metal-eating plants.
Metal-eating plants. Yeah,
I mean, that
I can't imagine anything evolving to eat tanks, but that does seem kind of 40k.
It is pretty cool.
I mean, I feel that's probably more a fact that's to envision scale of these plants. Because obviously if they've just evolved to eat metals, metal is a naturally occurring substance. It's appearing in the form of a tank rolling past is not so much natural, but...
The clouds of green gas. It sounds a bit World War One.
Yeah. And
that
all
could
natural
be
water being highly corrosive is interesting.
I mean, that's plausible, but I mean, can you settle a death?
I mean, if it was
like
if it was water, it wouldn't be corrosive though. If it were corrosive, it'd be something else.
Well, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And that'd require a scientific explanation, which wouldn't be possible because it's 40k.
Yes,
so,
this is true.
So it's quite credible.
Yep.
I think I'm going to go for the tank-eating plants.
I do like the tank-eating plants as well, but I think based on the fact that it makes no scientific sense, I will go for corrosive water.
We're splitting the needle again. I can tell you, it is in fact...
it's the fog,
it's deadly green fog.
Oh, we're good at this.
Oh, dear.
We're doing well at round 1. Now, would you like to know the details of how it is deadly?
Go on.
In fact,
yes, please.
Tell you what, I'm going to give you a bonus point if one of you can come even remotely close to in what way this green fog is deadly.
Right.
The green fog is deadly because it's not just that you breathe it in; it makes you forget where you are, and then all of the other plants eat you because you're not taking care of yourself on the death world.
I can tell you, Dave, that is not the case. So how about Dan? Do you want to guess why the green fog is deadly? It's not hallucinogenic as Dip suggests.
I'm going to guess that the green fog is deadly because it is extremely flammable and explodes on contact with anything remotely hot.
Oh, so no.
Okay.
Honestly, it's one of the most 40k things I've heard in a long time because
Go on, then.
It's ridiculous. So, it's deadly because the creeping green mists are capable of hardening in seconds into a crushing solid matter.
Okay.
So the way I imagine this is if someone 2 stories above you suddenly threw a bucket of wet cement out the window, and on the way down, by the time it reaches you, it is solid cement.
It's gaseous super glue.
Nice.
But imagine that on the scale of an entire fog bank. So this stuff just suddenly turns solid as anything and just crushes everything under it.
Yeah, I could see that being a problem.
Uh-huh. And while the book doesn't specify how, apparently the locals have adapted ways of avoiding it. Basically becoming, very aware of how to avoid this crushing green fog.
Mm.
So, question 4. The ocean world of Fathom is notable for which of the following phenomena? A. It has 0 landmass from pole to pole. B. It has seemingly no ocean floor. Or C. Water levels haven't dropped despite thousands of years of constant siphoning by the Mechanicum.
So, I think we know this one, Dan.
Do we?
I think this came up. I think Fathom came up in last week's discussion.
It definitely did.
About the water world where there were floating beds and they harnessed pumice and made them into the floating platforms. So there is a seabed because they harvest pumice from the equator and live near the poles. I think it's got no land mass though.
I mean,
I don't think it's the other one.
It is an ocean world, so that would make sense.
And what's the other one then? Tony.
The other option is the fact that water levels have not dropped despite thousands of years of constant siphoning by the Mechanicum.
I don't remember that being part of what we talked about last week.
No.
That there was any siphoning going on. I think I'll go with an old landmass.
It does sound very 40K,
because I'm being wrong all the way through. I might as well keep up my streak.
I think I will also go with there being no landmass. Primarily because you said Mechanicum, where I think you meant Mechanicus.
Sure, I meant Mechanicus, either or.
They've been harvesting water.
Therefore, on the off chance that you read that directly out of a book, it would be wrong.
Well, I can tell you for a fact that it's just me making a typographical error in the document because C is true.
Damn it.
So it has been siphoned by the Mechanicus. However,
thank you.
You will both get a point because this is in fact a trick question and all 3 facts are true.
Okay, right.
Yay.
Pity point. Got it.
And I will tell you now that is the only trick question in the quiz. But it's really fascinating that, the ocean world of Fathom has 0 landmass, and therefore the only, places of landing on the entire surface of this planet are the artificially constructed floating rigs that the Mechanicus has put there for thousands of years. The purpose being that they've spent all that time siphoning the ocean for its natural resources, and yet despite those thousands of years of, completely non-conscientious destruction of the environment, it doesn't seem to be affected by it. The planet just seems to remain abundantly full of ocean life and water levels have never dropped. The Mechanicum seems to be unable to ecologically destroy this planet despite its best efforts.
Very unusual.
And
Also,
That doesn't sound like mankind at all.
Also, saying there are no more trick questions is exactly the kind of thing someone would say who had put more trick questions in.
True.
But it shows we weren't paying attention to what we were talking about last week. I'm quite proud of that.
But then, in addition, yes, there is in fact no ocean floor. So I don't know where you were hearing pumice being talked about, Dave, because I don't
I'm
think
sure
it
that
was.
pumice was floating up and they gathered it up and made the floating islands out of them.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, they definitely obviously just are harvesting all natural resources, which might include some pumice, but I don't believe it came up in conversation.
I listened to other game podcasts as well. Maybe that came up there as a traveller world or something. I don't know. Never mind.
Right. Well, on to question 5, which is in fact a two-parter.
Okay.
So, this is in regards to Mr. Fabricator General Heptus Clang.
That's a great name.
It is, right?
Clank.
As Fabricator General of Forge-Old Metallica, Heptus Clang has undergone over 700 years of augmentation since his early days as a lowly cybernetic datasmith. First question. After such extensive reconstruction, which are the only remaining parts of Clang's original organic body? Is it A, some parts of his brain and skull, though the skull is now purely decorative? B, a few parts of his brain, and his favourite patches of radiation-ravaged skin?
Okay.
Or C, only a handful of gilded vertebrae and a few slivers of brain matter?
Or D, his firm flight stand.
No, that was his first bionic.
Funnily enough, Clang does now have anti-grav repulsors built
cool.
into his physical form. But that's not part of this question.
I think it's probably the gilded vertebrae because that sounds very 40k.
Doesn't it?
Because they don't always keep their first brain, do they?
Yeah. Though some bits of radiation ravaged skin sounds like a particularly weird 40k thing to do.
Yeah.
It's almost like Tony's been reading all this lore for years.
Almost like that.
Almost as if I've been doing it enough to be able to have a podcast about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know if you do that. I'd be interested, Tony. I'm going to go for the gilded vertebrae.
Cool. I'm going to go for the radiation ravaged skin.
Nice choices. However, Dave pulls away in the lead. Dave gets
Nice.
It is indeed all that remains of his original organic body, a handful, it's not even all of them, just a handful of gilded vertebrae and a few slivers of brain matter.
Oof.
Yeah, but you don't know how big his replacement hands are.
This is true.
Well,
or how many of them he's got.
Indeed.
funnily enough, part 2 of our questions on Heptus Clang.
How big are his hands?
How big is he? While
Okay.
almost nothing of Clang's organic body now remains, as we've just determined, his physical form, however, is quite large, thanks to all his augmetic enhancements. As such, which class of Imperial vehicle is Clang now the equivalent size of? And we've got 4 options for this one.
Okay, go on then.
A, an armoured sentinel. B, a Lehman Russ battle tank. C, an Armiger knight. Or D, a Space Marine Atreus super heavy battle tank.
Yeah, well, this is 40k, right?
Yeah.
So it's the Atreus battle tank.
I know that the I assume the Fabricator General of Mars, who sits on the High Lords of Terror, is allegedly the size of an office block.
This is true.
So that is definitely within realms of possibility, isn't it? I'm gonna go a bit lower, and I'm gonna suggest he is the equivalent of an armiger.
Are those our final answers?
Yeah.
I can tell you, Dave gets another point. Heptus Clang is in fact the size of a Space Marine Atreus super heavy battle tank, and the reason why this comparison
he's a big lad, isn't he?
He is. The reason why it's a particularly apt comparison is because he is also supported by anti-grav plates, similar to the Atreus.
Right.
So yeah, considering that biologically all that remains of him are some vertebrae and brain matter slivers, and yet his augmentations make him the size of a super heavy tank. He's basically just a computer chip now at this point in that machine.
Nice.
Machine Spirit's going to do what Machine Spirit's got to do.
So when's that model coming out then?
Next Mechanicum Codex, maybe?
Yeah.
Mechanicus, even. Question 6. As warp-spawned plagues and infections began to emerge on several worlds across the Charadon sector, how did Clang respond to the plague zombie outbreaks on the hive world of Saint Espene's Gift? Did he A. dispatch Mechanicus ships to cleanse the plague? Did he B. dispatch Mechanicus ships to quarantine the planet and observe it? Or C. did he ignore it entirely?
I'm going to say A.
Cleanse.
It's 40k.
Yeah. I mean, cleanse is one of the other option is hubris, and he ignored it entirely.
It's possible. In the back of my head, I have the idea that the Metallica Forge World is noted for being quite cruel and uncaring. So I'm going to suggest that nuke the site from orbit is the only way to be sure.
And I'm going to use the same reasoning to say ignore.
Fair enough.
Ooh. Fair enough. Well, I can tell you, Dan earns himself a point to catch up and only be one behind. Because yes, Clang did reason it was best to cleanse the plague. Now, his determination was the best way to solve this biological plague was to remove all overabundance of biological material.
Yeah.
Which, in 40k terms, means that Clang dispatched a squadron of Eradication Arc class vessels to unleash macro rad cleanser batteries upon the planet, annihilating all organic life and reducing the hive cities to glowing slag lakes in a matter of hours, leaving the world's atmosphere now choked with the whirling ashes of uncounted billions.
Why did the hive cities collapse if he attacked all the atomic matter, organic matter?
Because the radiation just destroyed it. So his logic was to make sure all the biological life was gone. The best way to do that was just to annihilate everything.
Okay.
I know what you're saying, but yeah, basically, like, he just melted everything with radiation. Like, all these hive cities across this world.
I would guess that the radiation, like, I assume the rad cleanser sends out like a beam of radiation, and they'd be converging on the points of the highest population.
Pretty much, like, these eradication...
Produce the most intensity in the hive cities, so melty.
These eradication arcs are basically, massive spacefaring vessels of a near heretical design.
Near heretical?
They're very... what's the word? like unorthodox.
Pointy.
Yeah, pointy. And then, funnily enough,
Very
Clang.
AdMech.
Yeah, very AdMech. But just to add to that, Clang ordered this same eradication order twice more on 2 other worlds in the system.
He doesn't know about the sump, does he? I bet some of those sump crocs survived.
And then finally, the last question in our first section. Question 7. Mass insurrection and civil war in the Charadon sector was only averted by the arrival of who in the sector? A. Rebute Gilliman and a Torchbearer fleet. B. An execution force of Imperial assassins. Or C. Typhus and the Death Guard.
I mean, we know
know
Typhus and the Death Guard did arrive.
Yeah. I don't think the appearance of assassins would quell rebellion. Because it wouldn't really be known that they were there, would it?
But would their actions have caused the quelling of rebellion?
Possible.
I don't remember Rowboat being there, so I think I'd have to go with the Death Guard.
I mean, the thing is, it seems like Death Guard would turn up wanting there to be insurrection and all that. Feels counterproductive.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, you sold me. I go with the assassins because it's more ridiculous than Girlyman.
Fair. See, I've talked myself out of Death Guard, haven't I? Yeah, we'll go assassins as well.
Fair enough. I can tell you that you did indeed talk yourselves out of the correct answer.
Of course.
And it is straightforward in that, yes, Typhus and the Death Guard did arrive, and their arrival did prevent mass insurrection and civil war against Heptus Clang and his campaign of eradication of biological life. And instead, all the other Imperial forces and planetary governors suddenly had a Death Guard invasion to be dealing with.
Yeah.
So the arrival of Typhus and the Death Guard actually galvanized the Imperials into dealing with a greater common threat than their own fabricated genre. So yes, it was indeed Typhus and the Death Guard, even though it was his sort of like forerunner plagues that were causing the eradication acts to be deployed. Ultimately, if he just sat off and waited a bit longer, chances are the Imperials in the Charadon sector would have turned on each other soon after.
Yeah.
So, moving on to section 2 of the quiz, and this one is going to be all about the Death Guard, because, as you can imagine, a book where they are the main antagonists, it features quite a lot of ridiculous, nurgly names for things. So, round 2 is called the Death Guard Name Game. I've got a couple of categories, and these are going to be 1 point per correct answer, and this is a true or false round. I'm going to read through a series of names of things, and you both have to decide whether or not you think that is a true name that features in this book, or whether or not it is one that I have generated thanks to the Realm of Plastics Death Guard name generator online. So, we're going to start off with some of the major figures of the Death Guard present in the conflict. And no, I will not be including Typhus in this, as we do know he is a real character name. So, Section 1, Lords of the Death Guard. Which of the following names do you believe to be true and which to be false? First up, Lord Thraxoplasmox.
True.
False.
That is a point for Dave. It is true. Then we have Lord Necretus Festaphage.
Ooh.
Go on, Dan, you can choose first. So.
Ooh. That sounds like a name generator name to me. I'll say false.
Yeah, I'll say true then.
That is a point to Dan. It is false.
Hey.
Then we have Lord Fekrot the Reaper.
That sounds like a generator name as well. False.
No, I also think it's false. Maybe.
You know what I've just realised though? We don't know that they've not used the same online generator.
That's true.
This is true.
Oof. That throws all the logic out.
Damn.
I think my thought is if there is a Death Guard character who's called the Reaper, you'd think like Mortarion with his giant scythe would come along and say, "Oi, that's me."
Yeah.
That's what we say into Lord Fekrot the Reaper.
I think we're both saying false. I'm saying false anyway.
I'm saying false.
You would both be wrong. It is in fact true. He's a legitimate character in the Book of Rust.
Okay then.
Next up we have Plague Captain Oglosmus Bilge.
Oglosmus Bilge. I mean, that sounds like somebody's going for a pun and not quite achieved it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say true.
Yes, I think it's true. That sounds like a true name. Maybe.
It is indeed a true name. You both get a point.
Hey.
Then we have Plague Captain Gangroil the Tainted.
That definitely feels like online generated. False.
Yeah, it does to me as well. Yeah, we say false.
It is false. Both get a point.
Hey. We're doing it.
You're working it out.
There, Dan.
Yeah. We cracked the code.
Next, we have some Demon Prince names.
Okay.
Gothungus the Rust Hand.
And that does feel like the kind of name that games should give demons. Name demons. Obviously, this is not his true name.
See, the thing is...
not his true name.
I feel like they do use a random generator for demon names. Because they've produced several over the years, haven't they?
Oh, they have, yes. I did think about using the one from like War of the Spider, but I didn't find it online before I found the Realm of Plastic name generator, so I just used that one.
Cool. So I'm going to say that's a true one.
So we're both saying true. It is in the book.
Yes, I think so.
Both going true. It is false. It is a name generator one. And then last for our Lords of the Death Guard, we have the Sistlings.
Ooh. I mean, I want to...
Sounds like a K-pop
I want to know more about them. That sounds cool. Yes, true.
False. It's false. I do think that sounds like something else entirely.
That is in fact true, and Dan equalizes the score with that.
Hey.
Yeah, the Sistlings are in fact a tri-conjoined Nurgle Demon Prince. So it's a series of three demonic entities that form the Sistlings.
Ooh, I want to build that.
I know, right? Sounds like a cool idea for a conversion, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Next up, we've got a couple of forces of the Death Guard. So these are a couple of like the brotherhoods and units and, like formations.
Okay,
involved.
okay.
First up, we have the Infested Brotherhood.
I mean, that sounds sufficiently tame that it could really be in the book.
I mean, that sounds like the most generic Death Guard company name I could think of. So that doesn't really help me make a decision. I'll say false on the same grounds that he's saying true.
Yeah.
I can tell you, it is false, and Dan takes the lead.
Ah, yes.
Next up, we have the Gristlepuss Guard.
Ooh. I don't...
False. That sounds name generated to me.
It does, doesn't it? But it also sounds kind of funky. I think it's false, though.
We both saying false?
Yes.
Yep.
It is in fact true.
Ah.
That is a legitimate Games Workshop name for a unit of, I think it's like Plague Marines. The Gristlepuss Guard.
Nice.
Let's send that writer back to Creative School.
Next, we have the Carrion Claws.
Right, that sounds true to me. That sounds like a kind of name for a Death Guard unit.
It does, doesn't it? What kind of unit would it be? Maybe
Assault unit.
possessed. Yes.
Yeah,
I will claim it is true and that it is a unit of possessed. Not that that's worth any points or anything, but you know.
And Dave, what are we going for?
Yeah, I think it's a true one.
As well.
I'm not sure whether it's a possessed unit or not, though.
Well, I can tell you it is a fictional unit, as it is false.
Okay, but in your mind, was it a unit of possessed?
Possibly.
It is now.
I was thinking a squadron of Hellclaws, the aircraft.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
Yeah.
But it is neither. It is fake.
cool.
Then we have Nalmurf's Blisterborn.
Ooh, that's true.
Is that what happens when Smurfs catch Nurgle?
You saying true, Dan?
I'm saying it's true because it fits the Games Workshop naming scheme of Nurgle things. That is something.
I'll say false then. I that could be because it does fit a scheme. I think that could be auto-generated.
True.
It is in fact false.
Ah.
Dave scores a point.
Neck
Then
and neck again.
Our last unit for the forces of the Death Guard. This is Gorlock's Rot Souls.
Yes, I like it. True.
Yeah, I think that's true as well.
That sounds like a possessed unit as well.
Well, I will tell you now, it is both true, so you're both going to score that point, but I will offer up a bonus point if you can tell me what unit it is, because this is one where we do actually know what unit
Well, I already told
it
you.
represents. So you think possessed?
I think it's a possessed unit.
And I think that's Plague Marines.
It is in fact a unit of Blight Lord Terminators.
Ah,
No bonus point. Okay. Next we have the Plague Ships of the Death Guard that feature in the conflict. So
Okay.
these are names of ships in their fleet.
mm-hmm.
First up we have Cankersaw.
True.
Go on, let's say it's true then.
We're going with true?
There's no logic behind it, just true.
It is indeed true. It is in fact the capital ship of a one plague captain Oglosmos Bilge.
All right,
Okay.
there you go. Why didn't we know that?
Because you've not read
Just
the
won't
book.
book of us properly yet.
Next, we have the plague ship Poxmulch.
Pox mulch.
All one word.
Yeah, I don't like that one. I think that one's auto-generated. And if it's not, it should be.
No. Yeah, I don't know. It feels slightly off, doesn't it? I will also say false for that.
So we're both going false?
Mm-hmm.
It is in fact true.
Yeah.
Terrible name for a ship. Don't go anywhere near it.
Next we have the Tainted Fortress.
No, it's a Slaneshi ship, isn't it?
It's a bit generic, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nah, that's false.
Yeah, it's false.
It is indeed false.
Yeah.
Next we have the
Points.
Hulking Menace.
I mean, talk about generic.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, that could be an Imperial ship.
That could be literally 75% of everything in 40k.
An Orc Rock, yeah.
Just basically, yeah. 75% of things in 40k could be described as a hulking menace.
In that case,
So
true.
false.
I like the way we use the same reasoning and come to different answers.
Yeah,
It is quite funny. So we're going Dave true and Dan false.
correct.
It is in fact true, and that is a point for Dave. Yes, the Hulking Menace is indeed a Death Guard plague ship that invades the Charadon Center.
Terrible name for a ship.
Yeah.
And then finally, we have the Repugnator. The Repugnator. There we go.
Yeah, I think I've heard of the Repugnator before. I think that was true.
It sounds like a ship. But is it a Death Guard one? I'm going to say that is false.
And Dave, you're going true.
Yep.
It is indeed true.
Oh,
And then,
he's opening up a lead.
while it is
What ship is it?
the Repugnator. Or
Yeah, no. Do you have any more information about what it is?
Nope, it was just a name. It's just one of the plague ships in Mr. Bilge's fleet.
Okay.
Mr. Bilge.
And then obviously...
Is that Mary J. Bilge, the singer?
And then obviously we do also know that the Terminus Est is involved, but that is quite a famous ship. It is Typhus's own,
Yes.
so I figured you would know that one was true.
Yep.
Of course, in English that means East Station. Right?
And then finally, we have a couple of names for some of the actual plagues unleashed by the Death Guard in the conflict.
Ooh.
So first up is the Nemesis Worm.
I've got no idea. It could be anything, couldn't it?
Yep.
I'll say true.
I'll say false.
As a point for Dan, it is true. This is in fact
Hey.
Typhus's ace in the hole. This is the thing that he's trying to bring to Metallica to unleash upon it and infect the Iron World.
Cool.
Next,
Is that worm with a Y or worm with O?
worm with a U.
Oh, okay.
Oh, fancy.
Trixie.
Next, we have the Dolorous Death.
Is that the one where you die when you get to 88 miles an hour?
That's the DeLorean Death.
Oh, okay. That doesn't feel right to me either. False.
False.
It is indeed false.
Okay.
Then we have the Putrid Pox.
Oh, that's really generic. But
But
Isn't it?
what has that insight given you previously?
that tells us that it's the thing that makes plague zombies, probably. True.
I think it's. I mean, we've had this before, haven't we? Where we both go to different conclusions based on the same logic. I think it's false.
It's a false for Dan, true for Dave.
Yep.
It is indeed false. So that is a point for Dan.
Hey,
Evens.
even Steven.
And then finally, in our Death Guard name game, we have the Saw.
The Saw.
S-O-R-E. As in a weeping
Oh.
saw.
Just the Saw.
The Saw.
That's the name of a plague, allegedly.
It is the name of a Nurgle infestation unleashed upon the galaxy.
Oh, I mean, that's just so generic. By the same logic, true.
Do you know what? I think I also will go true because it's such a Games Workshop thing to sort of use a one word.
Yep.
The generic word for thing as the scariest, nastiest version of that thing.
You remember the sock invasion of Segmentum Pacificus, right?
No, it was Segmentum Genericus, I think.
Sorry.
We're both going true?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is indeed true. So
Yeah.
the Saw is actually basically a giant rip in reality that Typhus
Nice.
basically sacrifices an entire cardinal world in order to facilitate. And that isn't even his original plan for it. He has an alternate plan which doesn't come to fruition, and this is his backup of, oh, well, I've got this giant Nurgle sorceress thing in my belt I might as well use. And he basically uses it to rip a hole in one side of the sector, and use it as basically like a webway gate style instantaneous warp route to Metallica.
If in doubt, warp rift.
Millions of Eldar souls cried out in pain as you described it as like a webway gate.
I know, right? But that's basically what it is, because it's not that he's thrown himself into the warp and out again. It's sort of like that instantaneous portal effect.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's how he moves his forces from where he is in the sector to Metallica when some of his lieutenants have failed in their efforts to crush other parts of the Imperial defences. So yes, that was the Death Guard name game, and that was round 2. And funnily enough, at the end of round 2 of 3, it's actually neck and neck between Dave and Dan, I believe.
It is.
If only there were 3 players, we could be that threefold demon thing.
The Sisling.
Sisling, yeah.
So then finally, we have a few more questions to get through in Section 3, the assault on the Charadon sector itself. So this is more revolving around Typhus' actual invasion and some of the events that happen therein. So, question 1. How were the retreating forces of the Astra Militarum's Savlar 88th Regiment slaughtered as they fell back towards fortified Mechanicus positions? Was it A, they were preyed upon by Drukhari raiders? B, they were fired upon by the Mechanicus? Or C, they were overrun by hordes of undead poxwalkers?
To Savlar. So they're the Chem Dogs, aren't they?
Funnily enough, yes, it's one of the sister regiments to the Armageddon Chem Dogs.
So we haven't heard anything about the Drukhari yet in this quiz, so I'm going to go with them.
And I'm going to go with a more cynical gun down by the Mechanicus. Because, weak biology being corrupted.
I mean, it's pretty 40k, isn't it?
Well, funnily enough, Dan's logic is correct. The answer is B, fired upon by the Mechanicus, so the point goes to Dave.
All right, fine.
The explanation being Drukhari infiltrators had intercepted and killed the Savlar messengers before they could inform the Mechanicus of their retreat. So with no saviour protocols enacted, the gun servitors of the Mechanicus positions opened fire on the retreating regiment. So it wasn't that they were preyed upon by Drukhari at all. It was literally, but it was the Drukhari's intervention that caused the Mechanicus to gun them down. And then, funnily enough, both Imperial forces were then ultimately destroyed by the actual pursuing Death Guard assaults that the regiment was attempting to fall back from.
Classic.
Sneaky elves.
Sneaky elves. And yeah, that is more or less the extent of the involvement of the Drukhari in this book, in the narrative.
All right, then.
Basically, the idea is that before Typhus arrived, the Drukhari had just been preying on the system anyway, just as they do.
Yep.
And because of the fact that they're constantly on the move and they're here, there, and everywhere, a lot of Imperial forces were out of position for the traditional defensive measures they would have to defend the system, because they were busy trying to chase down these Drukhari pirates. So
they basically turned up and played a prank and then left.
Pretty much. I mean, at one point...
Sounds a bit more Harlequin, really, doesn't it?
But I mean, you say a prank, but at one point Lilith Hexbrix takes over an entire planet and turns it into a planet-sized gladiatorial arena.
Just a prank, bro.
Mm-hmm. And then, because it's 40k, there were then some other political rivals of hers that decided to do copycat tricks of this and capture their own planets and do the same thing in attempts to one-up her. So,
nice.
Multiple Imperial worlds descended into Drukhari slave pits and gladiatorial fights for the amusement of their sakes.
Well, if you've got a whole world as a gladiatorial pit, you can probably pitch captured slave Mechanicus the size of Space Marine battle tanks against each other.
You can do theoretical fights. Who would win? 3 Castellan robots or 30,000 Imperial citizens?
Yeah.
Is this a I threw waves of my own men at them until they reached their kill quota and shut down? See, I wasn't sure where Dave was going with that. I thought there might have been a gladiators joke in there.
I was reaching for one, but I couldn't find one, so I gave up. I'll confess that.
Captured citizens, ready. Question 2. On the mining world of Heliotier, how did local militia forces combat the traitor titans of Legio Morbidus?
Oh.
Was it A, by scaling the exterior of the titans with repurposed mining gear? B, hit and run demolition teams attacking from hidden mine entrances? Or C, collapsing the surface works in the ground underfoot the titans in order to topple them?
That last one is a tactic that Typhus Cain used against Orc Gargants in his second novel.
I mean, it does make sense. If you got loads of mines, you just make the titans fall down. They all sound pretty good. It sounds pretty cool.
Let's go for that one anyway. The undermining.
Yeah.
Are you saying they undermined the traitor titans?
Option C. Yep.
And Dan?
I mean, that does sound logical.
It must be wrong in 40k then.
Yeah. Okay. In that case, I will go with scaling the titans with repurposed mining gear.
It sounds very 40k, doesn't it?
Sounds badass.
Well, I'm glad you think so, because I made it up, and in fact it is C. Collapsing the surface works in the ground under the titans.
Yeah, that does make sense.
That is a point for Dave. Question 3. How did Mr. Bilge break the siege?
Mr. Bilge?
Yeah, how did Mr. Bilge break the siege of Hive Rastigan on Saint Bartholf's throne? Did he A, cripple a Mechanicum eradication arc, tow it into low orbit above the Hive, and send it into a death dive, crashing into the Hive City? Did he B, fire tectonic missiles from low orbit to destabilize the foundations of the Hive City, causing a catastrophic collapse of the Hive in upon itself? Or did he C, fire a virus bomb warhead into the upper spires of the Hive, and the resulting biophagic purge spread uncontrollably, eradicating all biological life?
I mean, it feels like it should be option D, all of the above.
Yeah. I mean, this Mr. Bilge isn't messing around, is he? I like the eradication arc being dropped from orbit. That sounds like a 40k thing to do. Also, it's a callback to a thing we've previously mentioned.
Yep.
I'll go with that.
In a similar vein, I'm going to go for the third one, the firing the biocyclonic warhead, because that feels like a bit of a callback to destroying all organic life.
These
True.
both good reasonings. On this occasion, Dan gets it. It is
Hey.
towing an eradication arc which he crippled and captured, and then sending it into a death dive into the Hive City.
Nice.
And then, unfortunately for Mr. Bilge, how was he later slain after withdrawing his fleet from a losing battle with the Grey Knights? Was it A, when Grey Knight Paladins teleported aboard his plague ship's command barge and cut him down? B, when one of his lieutenants betrayed him and vaporized his skull with a combi melter? Or C, when his plague ship was destroyed by point-blank fire from Orc kill cruisers?
A is the MO of the Grey Knights, right? So, I mean, is it death by Grey Knights or death by a traitor in his own ranks, or
Death by
just
Orc.
brutally cunningly brutal orcs?
See, I feel like it might be B, because Games Workshop does like to write chaos as very infighty.
Yep.
But I really want to say C, because
we know the orcs should be in there somewhere.
Yeah. Because it's
what?
it's the orcs' neck of the woods, really.
I'm going to go for C as well, whether you do or not, because we've not heard about the orcs yet.
Yeah, no, we'll go C. Orcs.
I can tell you, it is indeed C.
Hey!
Tell them Red Tooth centers.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Bilge's plague ship, the Cankersaw, was destroyed by point-blank fire from Orc kill cruisers of Captain Dreadbag's freebooter fleet. And a bit like the Drukhari,
Nice.
This is the extent of the Orc inclusion
Right.
in this book. Again, they were piratical and basically a major player in raiding the Imperial forces in the area before the arrival of the Death Guard.
Mhm.
And previously in the conflict, Bilge had basically crippled these orcs and sent them packing. And in his moment of daring escape from the Grey Knights, Captain Dreadbag reappeared to get his revenge.
I'm going to choose to interpret that as the Death Guard were smart enough to attack the Imperial bit in Charadon and not the Orc bit.
Yeah, I think that's probably more the case. But yeah, basically, Dreadbag just took this opportunity to get some vengeance and deal out some karmic justice.
Nice.
Is that Clarm Orc justice?
Yes.
Or possibly Karl Mork justice.
Indeed.
Question 5. How was the Mechanicus eradication arc Necessitus Ajax destroyed above the planet of Magnifera? Was it A, torn apart in orbit by a swarm of plague drones and blight drones? B, it self-destructed after becoming infected with Chaos Scrap Code? Or C, it was destroyed by Magnifera's last functioning orbital battery?
So, Mechanicus vessel
This is one of the eradication arcs, yeah.
Yes.
called Ajax.
Necessitus Ajax. So, the prime necessity, I assume. I.e., kill all the biological stuff. It's a necessity. Honest.
I'm wondering if it's the namesake of War Rocket Ajax from Flash Gordon.
Haha. Yeah, maybe. I will say that it was the scrap code.
I'll say self-destruct.
That's also the scrap
There you
code.
go.
Yeah. So you both could.
Yes.
Oh, was it? Okay.
So,
What
self-destructed
was the
after
other option
becoming
then?
infected with scrap code. Or
Okay. And
torn apart in orbit by a swarm of plague drones and plague flies. And blight drones. Or it was destroyed by Magnifera's last functioning orbital battery.
okay, I'll go with a horde of drones.
So,
Niggle drones.
all the drones and destroyed by scrap code for Dan.
Yes.
Yeah. That is no points. It was in fact destroyed by Magnifera's last functioning orbital battery. It was as an act of vengeance by the Imperial defenders after the Eradication Arc had previously fired upon the Imperial world before the arrival of the Death Guard forces. It was sent there to aid them in the defense of.
Nice. Yeah, thanks, but no thanks.
Question 6. Nearly done now, just 2 more questions.
Okay. I've got Dave 1 ahead.
Yes, currently Dave is 1 ahead.
Every chance to overtake me.
Yep. It's getting tense.
Question 6. Elsewhere in the Charadon sector, an alliance of Wordbearers and Alpha Legion captured a subterranean complex known as the Stygian Temple for reasons unknown. However, what did they
captured it? The reasons for capturing it are unknown, or the reasons why it was called the Stygian Temple are unknown?
Both.
Okay.
But yes, and reasons unknown to us. I'm sure they had their reasons.
Good.
However, what did they unexpectedly find and later capture inside the temple? Was it A, a gene stealer cult and its patriarch? B, a single custodian guard of the Shadow Keepers? Or C, Cypher?
Okay.
You're not going to capture a custodian guard, are you?
I mean, you might. You might chop
Their
him.
thing that
You might chop his arms and legs off.
come back and fight.
Just for a point of clarity here, do either of you know the purpose of the Shadow Keepers Order of Custodians?
I believe they are tasked with keeping the sort of
Shadows.
the most. Are they the ones that are tasked with keeping the most dangerous, like, secret weapons, and like super weapons and stuff that the Imperium has hidden away secret?
Yes, they're the custodians of the hidden vaults in Terra, and basically, post the opening of the Rift, various weapons and inmates have escaped, and custodians are across the galaxy attempting, from the Shadow Keepers, attempting to recapture these artifacts or individuals.
Mm.
Just for reference.
So, do we think that Tony owns a copy of Codex Custodes?
Yeah, did he know that before, or has he only figured that out from this this particular documentation?
Cypher, that's another option, isn't it? Possibly. I mean, if there's Chaos Marines involved, Cypher might be there and he'll talk his way out again. What was the third option?
Gene Stealer Cult.
Oh, well, that's always an option, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
It's a difficult choice, this one.
I think I am going to go for the custodian of the Shadow Keepers.
I'm going to think that Tony's made that up, and I'm going to... No, I don't think Tony has made that up. I think he's read that out of the book. I think I'll agree with you, Dan.
Alright then.
I'm going custodian of the Shadow Keepers.
Yeah, but I'm playing you, Tony. I'm not playing the game.
Well, Dave, I can inform you that, in fact, I've been playing you because it is a Gene Stealer cult and its patriarch.
Oh.
And no, I don't own a copy of the Codex Custodians. I just know this stuff. But yes, in fact, the Wordbearers and the Alpha Legion did not expect to encounter a Gene Stealer cult. In fact, they were expecting to encounter cultist cells of their own that they'd placed there. But upon getting there, they basically destroyed the cult, and for, again, reasons unknown to us, the readers, they decided to restrain and subdue the patriarch of the cult, rather than kill it.
A difficult task.
But they did it. And then...
Maybe just chop all its arms and legs off.
All of them.
All of them.
It's got a lot of them. And then the last bit I want to read out was the actual description of the Stygian temple itself. The Stygian temple itself, because it was a very strange description. So we had, led on by the Slaneshi demon and its withering host, the disciples broke through into a temple of enormous scale. Its walls were formed of myriad blocks of needle-studded silver and onyx that shifted and interlocked endlessly. Its towering columns bore swarms of screaming faces, xenos and human, and things too wholly hideous to be either.
That's just part of the TARDIS, isn't it?
Well,
It sounds suspiciously like the inside cover of all the 9th edition books.
I was thinking
It
that.
sounds suspiciously similar to a lot of John Blanche artwork.
Yeah, that too.
And then the little description at the end was, at the last the patriarch fell, yet it was not slain. Instead, Tesor Kanaf, who was the leader of the Wordbearers, had his foe subdued and restrained. For in capturing the Stygian temple, the disciples had not completed their great work, but instead had merely begun it. A very interesting little tidbit there towards the end.
Which is Act 1, the Book of Rust, isn't it? So
It is. Now, for our final question of tonight's quiz, and which could be the tie... I might have to come up with a tiebreaker, because if Dan gets it right and Dave doesn't, it will in fact be tied. Yeah. Question 7. During his invasion of the Charadon subsectors, Typhus himself was actually dealt a grievous wound. A wound which refuses to heal despite his unholy constitution and dark blessings, and which he still suffers with today.
Oh.
What was this wound and who dealt it? Was it A? Was Typhus shot through the chest with a Stalker bolt round by Captain Caspius of the Excruciators chapter, now deceased? Was it B? Stabbed through the chest with a blessed power sword by Canoness Joghild of the Order of Our Martyred Lady, now deceased? Or was it C? Struck in the chest with a melter charge by Company Commander Stallaren of the Savlar 88th Regiment, now deceased?
I'm going to go with the Bon Jovi reference. Shot through the heart.
See, I think if it's a wound that's not healing, even though he is obviously blessed by Nurgle, I think. Well, I mean, I guess it wouldn't heal; it would just get worse, but in like a sort of Nurgly, happy way. I'm going to suggest that it is a blessed weapon. It sounds like an act of faith from the sisters of the Order of Our Martyred Lady. Was that?
It was, yes. Canoness Joghild.
So I feel like she got what she wanted then.
Because she became a martyred lady.
Quite.
So, Dan is going for Martyred Lady, stabbed through the heart with a sword. Dave, you're going for shot through the heart by Bon Jovi.
Yep, you're too
by Bon Jovi, right. Yes.
Well, I can tell you that, Dan, you are correct. Typhus was indeed stabbed through the heart, or stabbed through the chest with a blessed power sword by Canoness Joghild of the Order of Our Martyred Lady, and she is indeed now deceased.
Yes. That would have got them extra miracle dice.
Well, you say that, but funnily enough, as a little prelude, the Blade of Purity, as it's known, actually appears as a Crusade relic in the Book of Fire.
Nice.
The description being, cool. This gleaming sword was wielded in battle by Canoness Joghild and is said to have dealt Typhus a holy wound that not even his plague-ridden post-human physiology could heal. And I'm going to read out its abilities. So this is one little bit of rules crunch for tonight. Imperium infantry model with power sword, mastercrafted power sword, relic blade, or blessed blade only. This relic replaces a power sword, mastercrafted power sword, relic blade, or blessed blade and has the following profile. Range melee, strength +1, AP -3, damage 2. So it's pretty much and Mastercraft Power Sword.
Yep.
But in addition, each time an attack is made with this weapon, rules that ignore wounds cannot be used.
Oh.
In addition, if an attack made with this weapon destroys an enemy character unit, subtract 1 from that character unit's out of action test at the end of this battle.
Nice. That's cool.
And funnily enough, that brings the score at the end of the quiz 17 to 17 points apiece.
Ooh.
Yes.
You both equally know your 40k lore.
Or not, as the case may be.
Would you like me to come up with a tiebreaker question on the fly, or are you quite happy with a equal knowledge of Charadon?
I'd take a draw.
Yeah, I'm happy with a draw.
Everyone wins, kind of.
Neither of us are big Nurgly players, so apart from Dan.
Well, I'm a recent convert to Nurgle.
No, I think that's fair. Neither of us had really read it. I think that's a reasonable result.
All I know is I had fun reading it.
And making up all the alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, I hope all the sort of falsehoods I came up with were suitably convincing. They could have been part of 40k lore.
Yep. I mean,
I think so.
There were a fair few that we thought were too obviously fake that were real.
Yeah.
Yeah, the super glue fog. I mean, that's insane.
I enjoyed the hulking menace.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, we're calling our ship the Big Scary Ship. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I had fun doing that. I'm looking forward to doing it again with Book of Fire once I've read all the shenanigans that's going to be going on in the lore over there. Did you two enjoy that as a segment? Do you think that was a fun exercise? Fun.
Yeah, it was good. Thank you for putting that together, Tony.
And I'd love to hear from the listeners as well, so feel free to leave some comments or ideas or suggestions in, either below or on our Facebook group or anywhere else that you care to get in contact with us. Because it's been our first sort of foray into a lore-based episode. It's also been our first sort of like quiz-style segment, and I enjoyed everything about it, and I hope you guys listening did as well. So yeah, I think that's more or less everything for tonight. So just before we wrap it up, let's quickly go over our community spotlights, and I'm going to start with mine because, in fact, I can tell you now that it's going to be the Realm of Plastic name generators.
Yeah, figures.
Yeah, because as part of doing this, I just, little Google found them for me, and they've got plenty of them for various different factions and game systems, and they're all pretty good. I mean, in the case of the fake names that I pulled up for the Death Guard, I was occasionally like pulling or stitching parts together from component generated names, but I mean, you can see they were very much on par with the kind of things that Games Workshop themselves back out there. So I just wanted to give some credit to the Realm of Plastic. It's a website, and it looks like they sort of do all sorts of 40k and Games Workshop related articles and posts and various resources, one of which is this series of name generators. So if you need some 40k names, particularly Death Guard ones, go check them out. They've got a range of them, and I found them incredibly helpful for this, and I think they have some pretty legitimate options there for your Crusade characters and similar. So yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Realm of Plastic. Give them a Google, you'll find them online. And Dave, who have you got to shout out this week?
Yeah, I as I think I mentioned before, I live in rural East Suffolk, so I'd like to give a shout out to my local Games Workshop for two reasons. Just because they deserve it, and they're a great store in Bury St Edmunds for anybody that's visiting the area or is local to the area to pop in. But the second reason is that although I knew him sort of a little bit before, the guy that runs the store, Brett, actually attended the 40k tournament I went to last weekend in Saffron Walden, and he was with us and hung about with the three guys from our club, and actually overall ended up winning the tournament, which was really great to see. And I was the only person who killed his great big horrible Necron Lord on the day, even though he won the whole tournament. So I was kind of pleased with that. But the Silent King was what he brought. That was a bit terrifying.
Fair enough.
But on the same day, the shout out I made in the last episode for Nation of Lee on Instagram won the best painted at the competition, which was well deserved with his Soul Haunters army.
Nice.
And Dan, how about yourself?
Cool. So, given that we are talking about Forge World Metallica, I am going to shout out the Sandman. See what I did there. He is a 40k person who appears on the Conclave podcast, which you may or may not have heard of.
I have heard of it, and it's one on my to-do list to get around to listening to.
They're quite good. They get quite a lot of good, kind of fairly high-profile 40k related guests. But he started doing YouTube videos a while back. They're sort of vaguely competitive themes rather than narrative, but there's a bit of a mix in there. But he does a thing called the Gotcha Guide, which is like a little sort of shortish video that basically just tells you the kind of things you need to know about a new army, that like the things that will catch you out, sort of like the cheeky stratagems or the warlord traits or whatever that are particularly nasty that might come up that you might not expect. It's pretty cool. So here, he's on YouTube as the Sandman, which is quite hard to search for on YouTube, incidentally. So probably type in Sandman 40k or something like that. And he is also on Instagram as the Sandman Hobby, all one word.
Nice. Yeah, so go check that out, guys. And so yeah, that's basically everything for tonight. So if you've enjoyed the show, and in particular if you've enjoyed this new sort of format, it's something I'd like to revisit for some future publications, and it'll help break up some of the crunchier rules episodes, because there's going to be a couple of them coming now with Book of Fire and Amidst the Ashes. So just really enjoyed this one. I hope the listeners enjoyed it as well, and thank you, Dan, and thank you, Dave, for not reading the lore before we did this.
You're welcome for rewarding my laziness.
Thanks for joining me on the show, and I'm sure we'll have you on again, maybe for something like this again in the future.
Awesome.
And until next time, guys, this has been the Narrative Wargamer Podcast, helping you to discover more ways to play 40k.